Hello everyone, welcome back to Chill Deal Trades, the most accurate stock market channel on YouTube. I'm switching it up because I gotta start representing. If you've been here for a while, the calls on the channel have been ridiculously accurate, and we're gonna continue to do that. So I'm changing the slogan. We have a new slogan for the channel. But thanks for stopping by, guys. I really appreciate it. If you're new, hit the sub. Today we're gonna be covering PubMatic, which is pub stock, PUBM. We covered it about a month ago or so as a stock that we kind of found on our radar and we really like it. Back then we said wait a little while, see what happens, and obviously the stock has dipped significantly, and over the last 2 days I think it's up like 20%. So try to figure out if we should buy now or if we should wait a little bit longer and see what happens when the dust settles. So let's jump into things. So first, I would say go back and watch the last video if you haven't. I covered the company in much more depth there, what they are, what they do, why I like them. This stock we're going to be more of an update. But the first thing I'm saying, coming into Q3 and Q4 earnings, the first thing I want to say is I do think Q3, so September earnings is coming out soon, is going to beat. I don't know about on the net income part, but I do know on the revenue part, because when we look back at June 2020, so June 2020, I work in digital advertising for context, and I do these kind of things. I don't work with this platform, but I work with similar platforms. 2020 was an amazing year for e-commerce, and people were spending money like crazy on these kind of platforms to show ads. And to see 2021 also have a really great year, what happened during 2021 is stores started to reopen and people went back to stores to shop. And so a lot of companies actually pulled back on their advertising spend because, you know, at least I would say e-commerce, I also have in stores. A lot of people were pulling back because they were seeing a slowness in sales on their e-commerce. And so being able to see June revenue significantly higher than June of last year is a really good sign. And I would say that's a really good sign moving to September as well. As we're continuing to see people ramp back up coming into Q4. I think this year Q4 for e-commerce is going to be huge. And when you have a big Q4 for e-commerce, that means digital advertising platforms can potentially have really big revenue. And so that's kind of what I'm looking for here. What we really want to keep an eye on is their profitability to see if their expenses have gone up. If their expenses have gone up, it's having to expand, how many workers they have because they've grown so much. It could be, advertising costs if they're advertising to get people on their network. So on the net income, I'm not sure about, but I still believe they'll be profitable, and that's what we like to see about the stock. Other thing I want to point out really quickly, 52 PE ratio. Love to see that. That's a great thing for the stock. And then next, some interesting news that came out. So I've been trying to figure out why the stock has moved higher recently. So really interesting. Today, Zacks actually came out and gave PubMe a sell rating. Sell? I say sell, very strange. But they gave him a sell rating, which is really interesting. Obviously, they had a pretty high price target before, 55, and they bumped. Sorry. These are other platforms. So there are some pretty high price targets. So how much Zacks matters? Zacks is a pretty well-established platform a lot of people believe in. So we'll have to see what kind of impact it has on the stock. But on the flip side, I think a reason why the stock has moved up, this is from the 3rd, which is a little bit while ago, but Motley Fool came out with two things. So I saw this article actually when I was looking at the company a couple weeks ago, but an article came out and said, here are 5 amazing discounted growth companies to look at, and PubMatic was on that. And so if you don't know Motley Fool, huge company, when it comes to anything about the stock market and investing. So they had 2 articles come out in the last, basically in the same week 2 weeks ago, and they were both very bullish. And so this is getting a lot more eyes on PubMatic, which is a positive. We want more eyes to get on the stock. So those are a couple of reasons why I think maybe we're having some new investors come in. We also know that the stock did have a really high short float, and one of the subs actually said that they saw the short float decrease significantly. Let's actually do that. I didn't bring it up. Let's bring up PubMatic and see where the short interest was. So that's at 19%, still decently high, but I believe that was shorter than from when we looked at the last video. So maybe we're seeing some covering here on the move higher. Obviously, people don't want to get their profit squeezed from their shorting, so maybe they're covering Those could all be reasons. And then lastly, before we get to the technicals, because that's what I want to spend most of the video on, institutional ownership. So the main call out here is BlackRock actually took a 3% ownership on 9/9. That's pretty big. So we had a lot of people buying early this year during, you know, when growth stocks were going crazy. But seeing BlackRock come in and buy this month is pretty bullish. BlackRock buys a lot of stocks and they're not scared to sell either, but taking this big of a position, I would say, is pretty bullish to have a big company like BlackRock come in and support it in terms of buying shares. To me, that's pretty bullish. So that's something I want to keep an eye on, is if we see more. Now that BlackRock comes in, they're kind of validating the company. We might see more institutions come in. And lastly, before we get to technicals, just looking at insiders. So we have seen some insider selling. It's not a huge. We saw a pretty big in Q4 of last year, but we haven't seen a ton. But we are seeing some C-suite selling over the last month, which is interesting. Them selling as the stock has pulled back. So this is something I just want to keep an eye on. Obviously, a lot of this is just profit taking. These people have tons of shares, and the lockup period is probably expiring for some of them, and so they're just, you know, making some profit on their hard work for the company. These are things I'm keeping an eye on all the time. So let's go to the charts, because that's what I want to spend most of the next second half of the video on. So this is daily chart. A lot going on here, but stay with me. Everything's important that we're putting on the chart. So the main thing is on this buyout. The price that I'm looking for, I honestly want the stock to come back from here. I don't like when stocks skyrocket like this. Obviously what we see here, every skyrocket led to a bigger decrease. So that's not what I want to see for the stock. And that's why I'm waiting. I'm not buying at this peak. And one of the main reasons is when we look at the 100-day EMA, the 100-day EMA is at 27.80. And we broke above it, but then the stock ended up failing and breaking back below. So tomorrow we're going to want to keep an eye on it. When we go to the hourly chart, we do see on MACD, or sorry, on RSI, that we're overbought. And so we want that to come down a little bit. On the flip side, we are seeing RSI get over that 50 range, and so that's bullish. So honestly, I would want this stock, let me pull it this way a little bit for my head to get out of the way. I would really like this to come back down to this 50 to 60 range. And if that also coincides, now I got a weird drawing here, but if that also coincides with the stock coming back to the 20 EMA, that's going to make me feel really bullish. So the 20 EMA is around 25.60, 25.70. It's probably going to creep up here because of the move. So say $26.50 to $27. Is that right? No, $25.60 to $26. That's the range I'm going to be looking at for a pullback. We might even see higher acceleration for the 20 EMA to come up to this really big support zone at 26.50. So 25.50 to 26.50 is really a pullback I would like to see. If I can see the stock come back, if I can see RSI stay above around 45-ish range, that's going to be very bullish for me, as this pullback was just over-exaggerated selling and maybe people forcing people to sell for them to buy shares, who knows. But that could just be an over-exaggeration if we're able to keep the 20 EMA. I tell you guys this all the time, 20 EMA is a momentum indicator. If we zoom out here, below 20 EMA, as we can see here, it hits it, comes down, hits it, comes down, breaks above, but comes back below. And that's why I want to see the stock hold the 20 EMA. We need to stay above it. It straddled here for a while and then ended up failing to the downside. So if we can here, I would like to see something like this. Come back here, back test the long-term trend line. So we have a trend line from back here. If we can come to the 20 EMA, back test a trend line and hit support, those are all really bullish things that maybe it's time for the stock to reverse. You know me, I'm super bullish on this stock long term. I think they have great potential with digital advertising blowing up and continuing and making more way as things with Facebook have more scrutiny. It creates space for companies like this to succeed. And so those are things I'm looking at. A couple other long-term trends. We have two long-term trend lines that we broke above. So we back tested the long-term trend line here, and then right here on the sideways action we broke above that trend line. So we have a lot of positive momentum for the stock. We'll just have to see if we can keep the positive momentum. With the news articles coming out, with shorts probably covering from the volume, as we can see, pretty big volume here, 3 million, this is a really low float company in terms of shares on the market. Let me get back to it because I know I have this up. They only have 19 million shares. That's really small, and so 3 million makes the company move pretty significantly. So those are things I'm going to be looking for, and if we can come back, test a 20-day, because that's what I would really like, and then we can get back above this range right here, those are all really great signs. Let's zoom in a little bit to a shorter time frame. So as we can see on the breakout, we broke above this zone, super bullish. We tested it for a couple days and then ended up accelerating yesterday. And then today we saw another day of acceleration. 4-hour chart, not oversold yet, which could deem a little bit more upside for the 4-hour. 1-hour charts, they can stay overbought for a while, but when we see the 4-hour and things reach overbought, it typically doesn't stay up that long. So for here as an example, we got 1, 2, 3 days of less green after the big push, and then we saw a big red day in the move lower. So I honestly would not want to see the 4-hour overbought. I would want it to come back here, hang out, and then move it, stay above 50. That's really what I'm mostly looking for the stock. But yeah, we're above all these trend lines, as you can see, all the green downwards. If we look at the 50-day on the 4-hour, it's up at $26. So like I said, and we have the 20-day at $24.70, so a little bit lower than the daily chart. But this is the zone we want to look at for the pullback, and if we can hold that, then that's super bullish. On the hourly chart, we have the 50-day at 24. So as you can see, this 24, 25, 26, such an important zone for this stock. And something else I want to do, let's look at the 100-day on the 4-hour just to see if the 100-day was also, look at that. This always happens, guys. That's why you want to look at multiple time frames to see where the SMAs line, or the moving averages, line up. So what we're seeing on the 4-hour, the 100-day is also is at the same spot as I think it was the 50-day on the daily chart. So we have multiple resistance points that we hit, and now we really want to see this come back, test the breakout zone, because this is just too drastic of a move. The stock's not going to be able to hold this high 70-degree angle for very long. We want it to come back around at this range and have this more realistic uptrend. If the stock can hold, I would say something more like this. That's a great trend line. I'm happy I just put this. If it can come back here, test the breakout, and hold this line, that's very bullish. This is a great angle for the stock to succeed in the long term if we are seeing a reversal. But those are all price targets we want to look for. If we do pull back and then move higher, you know, we have a price target or price points around 29, big resistance. So 29 to 30, that range is really significant, but obviously we have to get back above that 100-day and 50-day, which is around 27.80. So we have 29 to 30, and then another big resistance at 31.50, and then 34. So those are all the kind of short-term price targets we want to look at. And so that's all I have for you guys today. I hope you like this video. Please sub, please like. I really want to know what you guys think of the stock in the comments. This is a company we love and we'll continue to follow on the channel. So stay along for the journey. And guys, Friday, live stream. Every Friday we do a live stream, so stop by then. And hopefully I'll see you. So talk to you again soon.